Thank you very much, Mr. Alatawa. We'll now call on our two panelists, Professor Mansour Limba and Professor Eileen Anisha. So I introduce them. Dr. Mansour Limba is an Associate Professor of Islamic Studies at Ateneo de Davao University and a Sharia Counselor at Law. Recognized in the AD Scientific Index as among the top 5 scholars at Ateneo de Davao University and among the top 15 in the Philippines in the fields of history, philosophy, and theology. Dr. Limba has keen interest in international policies, Islamic studies, and interfaith dialogue. He was a recipient of the 13th International Farabi Award in 2022 in Humanities and Islamic Studies and has served as the Fellows Program Regional Coordinator for South and Southeast Asia at the King Abdullah bin Abdulaziz International Center for Interreligious and Intercultural Dialogue, based in Lisbon, Portugal. He is the author of the book, The Power of International Quds Day in the Cyberspace. Professor Limba has been speaking at numerous conferences, forums, and events on the Palestinian question. He is actively involved in areas such as conflict resolution, barn legal pluralism, and Islamic finance. Beyond academia, Dr. Limba manages the Elise-Style Bookshop, a thriving publishing house based in Cotabato City. May we now hear first from Dr. Limba.
We always follow the universal dictum, ladies first.
Very much, Professor Limba.
Thank you so much, Sister Eileen, for the very emotional presentation that you have. And thank you also, Mr. Ahmad, Brother Ahmad, for the main presentation. So before I proceed, since usually immediately after lunch, we are in an holy war and holy hour. So let me know from the people, from the participants at the back, if I am audible enough. Please raise your right hands. Okay, so thank you so much. At least we are assured that we don't look like a pillow or a blanket at this point in time. First, I would say, let me greet you with the greetings of Abraham, Moses, Jesus, and Muhammad. Shalom Alaikum, Assalamu Alaikum, and may peace be upon you all. We are gathered here for something that is common to us all as members of the human race. Let me have a rejoinder on the last point that was mentioned by Sister Eileen, and that is about the BDS. Boycott, divestment, and sanction. It means to say to boycott all products and companies which are connected to the Zionist entity, which is an embodiment of white supremacy and settler colonialism in the current world. We look forward for a situation when this boycott and divestment could be felt in the bar in the same manner that in Malaysia the people really expressed along that way, and the result was even felt by the people on the other side of the fence. By sanctioning, we also look forward for a situation when a school in Davao would not have a memorandum of agreement on health issues with a Zionist entity which is actually complicit or the perpetrator of a genocide which is done live on TV. Now, this BDS or boycott, divestment and sanction is something that was already tested before. And since the result is something that was positive, there is no reason that it will not that it will not also yield positive result in the case of Palestine. I am referring to the BDS against the apartheid government of South Africa before. Now the question is, to what level our BDS in the country is? I think you have no qualms in agreeing with me that it is something that is low. Why it is low? Because there are needed efforts to catapult the issue of Palestine into the national public discourse. It means to say that instead of holding this seminar right here in the fringes of Davao, it should be in Manila, right there in the center. Instead of just local media covering this, it should be international and national media. That is to catapult Palestine into the national public discourse. Now, what are the hindrances to this public discourse? We could cite so many. One is the low public awareness that we have. The second is the fear of being labeled anti-Semitic. And the third one is the sickness that I would say neutrality mentality. So let us first deal with the first one, the low public awareness. When we talk about Palestine, even at the national level, even at the academe, even in the media, we are always confronting myths after myths and myths. The first myth, go to Manila, deal with the common people, and you will be given the impression that Palestinian is Muslim. We fail to realize that Palestinians are Muslims, are Christians, secular, even Jewish Palestinians, and even secular Palestinians. That is the first myth that we will encounter even at the national level, or I would say international level, that Palestinian is Muslim. The second one is that Jew is only a religious identity, where in fact, no, they are playing with the cards of Jew as a racial identity and Jew as a religious identity. These people who are claiming that this piece of land is given to them by God are usually people who are secular. And worse still, people who are atheists. They don't believe in the one who gave the land for them. But for the sake of the argument, they would say otherwise. Why? Because they are playing with the cards of these two identities. Jew as a racial identity and Jew as a religious identity. The third reason for this low awareness we have is the issue of chosenness. That we are the people who were chosen by God. It means to say it has to do with Abrahamic faith, Abrahamic covenant, which are both mentioned in the Old Testament as well as in the Quran. What we are thinking is that the Abrahamic covenant is something that is unconditional, that it is something that is unfettered, that it is something that it is unhinged, and it is something that is eternal. They would cite Genesis chapter 12, they would cite Genesis chapter 15, saying that these were given to us, the descendants, the so-called descendants of Abraham. But they will not cite Genesis chapter 12, wherein this Abrahamic covenant is tied with one condition, and that is obedience. So long as you obey the Lord, then that would be there, the covenant. In the Quran, we can find it in Surah Al-Baqarah, chapter 2, verse 124, when Allah Ta'ala said, وَإِذْ إِنِّي جَائِلٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَإِذِ ابْتَلَى إِبْرَاهِيمَ رَبُّهُ بِكَلِمَاتٍ فَأَتَمَّهُنَّ قَالَ إِنِّي جَائِلُكَ لِلنَّاسِ إِمَامًا قَالَ وَمِنْ ذُرِّيَّتِي قَالَ لَا يَنَالُ عَهْدِ الظَّالِمِينَ. And remember when Abraham was tried by his Lord with certain commands, which he fulfilled, then Abraham said, and also covenants for my descendants. Allah Ta'ala said, yes, covenants is also extended to your covenants, but not to those who are لا ينال عهد الظالمين. It will not be extended to those who commit dhulm, to those who commit iniquity, those who commit injustice, and those who commit oppression. And look, the ongoing genocide in Gaza, the ethnic cleansing in West Bank, as well as in the neighboring countries, as mentioned by Brother Ahmad. And in the Quran also, we can find in Surah Al-Luqman, verse 15, Inna shirka la dhulmun azim. That verily the greatest of dhulm is nothing but shirk or polytheism, such as worshipping Baal and other taghut. So these are some of the hindrances or the reasons why we have what low or even wrong awareness of the issue at hand. That was the first. The second has to do with the fear of being labeled as anti-Semitic. What is the reason for this? Because at the national consciousness, we believe, although sometimes we already have the grasp of the elements of truth, the problem is that we always think that to support a certain entity is an asset, such as in the United States. Politicians would support because of the AIPAC lobby, because of the AIPAC support. But now the trend is reversing. That they would understand that to support the Zionist entity is now becoming a liability. Becoming a liability at least on a level of imagery that they are trying to portray. The third hindrance to catapulting Palestine into the national public discourse is what we call as the neutrality mindset. That the issue of Palestine is something that is very complicated, therefore it is not advisable for us to engage with it. It is the same mentality that we could find in the history of in the intellectual history of Islam. On one side, we can find the Khawarij, those who would declare any Mustafa, Ja'far, and Muhammad, aside from them, as kafir. That is on one side. The other side is what we call those who represent what we call the Murji'a madhab, or what we call as Murjites. the Murjites would tend to suspend judgment. We could not judge between the Palestinians and this side because our knowledge is insufficient. That is usually the mentality that we have. A worse kind of it is what we call in fiqhul awwaliya, in the jurisprudence, talking about priority as focusing on the minors and neglecting the major issues. What is this one? We can find it in Tabaqatus Sa'd, or we can find it in Tarikhud Dimashq, for example, a narration from Abdullah ibn Umar. He was asked by the people of Kufa, saying, Yas'aluna anil dhibab. They are asking me whether it is haram to kill a fly. وَقَدْ قَتَلَ ibn binta Rasulillah salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi wa alihi. They are asking me whether it is haram to kill a fly, but the same persons they butchered the grandson of the grandson of the Prophet, or the son of the daughter of the Prophet. What we mean here is that instead of waiting, or instead of just clamoring or crying for the genocide that is continuously done in Gaza, for example, we are judging the fate of every individual. That this one is a people of Naraka or hell, and this one is the only salvage community that we have. This is the condition that we have now. These factors are there for us to address. So with that, I would end my reaction by maybe a prayer or a wish that in as much as we are gathered here today, very soon we will be gathered in the holy city of Jerusalem, insha'Allah ta'ala.
Thank you very much. That was a very powerful presentation, Professor Limba. And thank you for the rest of our panelists. We are now opening the room for open forum. We can entertain 2 or 3 questions or comments, reaction from the participants. Yes, we have one. Please approach the microphone in the middle. And then, yeah, another one there. So we can have, and please direct your question to whoever you want to answer. So we'll start with Joshua, and then, yeah, please introduce your name and organization.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Joshua Mant. I'm the Secretary General of Centro. And we're very happy to be part of the co-sponsor of this conference. First of all, thank you to all the panelists. And I actually agree that the next summit, the next conference should be in Manila. And that is where we should be. That's the first point. But I'd like to raise a question here which has never been raised yet. And that is the issue of the solution. We know that the UN, the standard solution is this 2-state solution. But there is now a question of the possibility or the sustainability of such a solution. Many are not questioning that. So I'd like to hear from our panel, what do you think about the idea that the 2-state solution is no longer viable? And that what is really needed is a state where there is respect for everyone. Is that even possible? Thank you.
We'll take note first. We will collect the next question. Okay?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I am Salahuddin Badawi, member of Muslim Youth Brotherhood under the leadership of Professor Mantikayan. My question is addressed to Mr. Ahmad تعاون. In the context of the Palestine issue, multiple actors are often mentioned as contributors or supporters, including armed groups, political authorities, and regional states. My question is, who are the real actors supporting Palestine? Hamas, the Palestinian government, Iran, Gulf countries, Yemen, Hezbollah. Thank
We
you.
have two questions. One is the viability of the two-state solution, and the other question is who are really supporting the Palestinian people's struggle? Is that a question, brother? Tama? Who are the ones really supporting the Palestinian people's struggle?
Hello. Well, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. Thank you very much for that very important question. And really my answer is that I'm not a Palestinian. And although I support Palestine wholeheartedly, I do not want to speak for them. I think it is an answer that every single Palestinian must answer and not us. Though we support them, we should not pretend to speak for them or to know what is best for them. And I think we should draw the line between speaking for them and supporting them. Thank you very much.
Okay. Professor Limba?
Thank you so much. I also personally do agree of refraining from speaking on behalf of the Palestinians or the indigenous inhabitants of that piece of land for themselves. What we will now talk about or what we will now express is from somebody that is from outside. As far as the two-state solution is concerned, it is no less than a former UN official, Mukhabir, and others who expressed that the two-state solution is something that is practically untenable. And look at the situation now. The UN General Assembly so many times have already, the overwhelming members of the Assembly have already recognized the state of Palestine. But the question is, how is the state of Palestine now? So, as an outsider, we would say that the logical solution is for all the inhabitants of that place to decide for themselves what they want. Is it a two-way solution, a two-state solution, or something that is a one-state solution wherein everybody is recognized irrespective of religious affiliation or any political tendencies, in order to remove or in order to refute another myth that that piece of land that we call Palestine is a land that is bereft of people, meaning without people. That's why the people without land were sent there from Europe. So that is our 2 centavos.
Thank you, brother and sister, again. Actually, the question is a very strong question, but my answer will be quick and shortly. I will give you as you need the answer. The Iranian system, they have a project. They're not leading Palestine. They supporting Palestine, open for every people, for every country, even black or white, Muslim or non-Muslim. But the Iranian, they have a project, they work in that, and they support. Most welcome. Even Hezbollah, he have a project in Lebanon, not in Gaza. He supports, okay, most welcome. Today, Philippines support, most welcome. But in Palestine, in last 5 years, all parties, Hamas and Jihad and Fatah and Alwiya, they make a one room. This is a room as a union, they fighting until now. Why Gaza? As a strong until now, and they manage until now, and they lead until now. This is not normal, brothers and sisters. they try with this is company to give a food by guns from Rafah side and from north side. They make a people around 5 kilometers to take small bread or small any food, and they kill every day around 55 to 100, 250. This is the minimum, 55 to 150 women, child, man, for to give the food. Imagine, before this is company, the American company, the human American company, before that, Gaza was with union parties, Hamas and Fatah and Alawiyah. They managed the situation, and the food go to for every home. Okay, not all, but they try to make a system. They need from us to kill the system. They need from us to kill the system, to have a crazy issue, to fight between. There is some people between brothers, they fight about food. There is a the last film, the Egypt, they give the real issue in Gaza, what happened. For that, you know the answer. The Palestinians, they are the first defense line in Gaza. They're fighting in Palestine. But supporting is open for all. This is my answer.
So really, Joshua, pwede pa ba yan hahabulin? Okay, follow up.
So, Holistic Love, thank you for your response. I agree. They should decide. But I think we as supporters, should also agree on the principles on how this will be settled. Whether it is a one-state solution or a two-state solution, or multiple states for that matter. I think what is important is that, thank you.
I think what is important is that there should be genuine self-determination, there is a complete equality, and obviously there is a need for the right to return. I don't think we can agree in any solution where Palestinians who have been massively dispossessed can no longer return. That is unacceptable. Even if we're outsiders, I think we should all together stand on that principle.
One last, because our sister here would want to respond to that point by Joshua.
So, I mean, before we speak about territorial division, one state, two state, how can you make a country without the people or without the land? As you can see, most of Palestine is taken. We're talking about maybe 80% of Gaza is taken, and most of the people, 90,000 people, are killed. How can you make a country of that? And this actually it's actually built on the other question that was asked: who stands behind Palestine or with Palestine? If there was a profound help to the Palestinian that won't allow 90,000 people to be killed up till now, and they are being killed as we speak. Also, it would allow that now our prisoners in the Israeli prisons are being executed as we speak. Nobody is preventing that law. All our prisoners are being killed right now. They are facing the hanging, and nobody is stopping that. If you stand beside Palestine, we need the governments to move. We appreciate that there are keyboard fighters. We appreciate the sympathy and the empathy. However, there is no liberation if the empathy doesn't translate it into responsibility. Awareness is not translated into action. Solidarity is not translated into partnership. We have to move. We don't have just to click the keyboard and, say +18 curses on the Facebook or Instagram. We need our governments to move and save the people. We are dying. The media now is not covering Gaza as it should. The people are preoccupied with the oil right now. As we speak, lately in Eid, the Eid, a group of children, They were playing. They were having fun, being children in Eid. And they were bombed. The media did not cover that. The media should stand behind Palestine and with Palestine. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Points well taken, very, very clear. I'm sorry that we need to cut this session. There's still opportunity for us to interact, to raise our comments in the succeeding panels. So with this, we're closing the panel 1, and we would like to extend our gratitude to our panelists. We will present the certificate of appreciation for Mr. Ahmed Alatawa for your grateful participation. We recognize as a speaker for this National Solidarity Conference. We would also like to present this certificate of appreciation to Professor Mansour Limba. And last but not the least, to sister, to Ma'am Professor Eileen Anisha. Si Ma'am Eileen, last minute. Inabol, but thank you very much.
This is a small kofia to Professor Limba.
Let's give a round of applause. Ganda. Thank you, Sir Ahmed. Brother Hashim, you're being requested to be on the stage to receive this token of appreciation from Brother Ahmed Alatawa. Let's give them a round of applause as we close this first panel. And here is our token of appreciation for our speakers also. Professor Hashim, kala ko Professor Hashim magdidistribute. Alam po, palakpakan po natin, we're closing this session. Group picture for the official photographer. Attorney Ann, dito ka. Akyat ka daw. Thank you.